Chindela lenywa ila muwa matinda batomu pendabye pete pete kabawelane jesubye ngene kabawelano ila chindela lenywa wa ila chindela lenywa ila muwa matinda batomu pendabye pete pete kabawelane jesubye ngene kabawelano ila chindela lenywa wa.
They say until the lion learns to tell his own story, the tale of the hunt would always glorify the hunter. That is why our story has to be told now, and told adequately and accurately. They say until the lion roars enough to show that he's the king of the jungle, little rats may assume power and think they are the kings. This is the African history class. We have heard so much about their story, his story, her story. Time now to tell our own story. The story that is about to blow your mind. Today we have a story of loyalty. A story that will make you sit back and ask yourself if there are people like our hero we are talking about today in today's world. Today we are looking at the story of Salifu Dagarti, and we are going to disabuse your minds of so many different things. We are going to make you unlearn some of the things you learned in the past, because this story has never been told. Yes, it's never been told. We are telling this story adequately and accurately for the very first time, and I need you to come along. This is the African history class, and my name, Black Rasta. Do me a favor, please subscribe to our YouTube channel. It is called the African history class, and African is spelled A-F-R-E-E-K-A-N, as if to say free, you know. Class is K-L-A-S-S. The story unfolds. Today we are telling the story of Salifu Dagarti. Salifu Dagarti was born in July 1913. Now, when you look in so many different documents online, you'll be misled that Salifu Dagarti was born in 1931. It is not true. Salifu Dagarti was born in July 1913, and we are going to bring you all the facts. Again, there are some pictures making the rounds on social media, and people believe that this is Salifu Dagarti. But no, this photo you see here is not Salifu Dagarti. In fact, it's actually a senior daughter of Salifu Dagarti's husband, who himself was a policeman in the Gold Coast. This is the true photograph of Salifu Dagarti. This is the photograph. Now the story unfolds. Salifu Dagarti was born in July 1913, and he was born in Kumasi. How come he was born in Kumasi? How come he was born in Kumasi? His father came all the way from a little village in the Upper West region known as Ullo. He made his way all the way through Kintampo, all the way down to Accra, where he became a soldier in the Gold Coast Regiment. He rose all the way up to Sergeant Major. He was a man who was a Dagarti. In fact, Ullo is located just around Jirapa. It's in the Jirapa district of the Upper West region. And over there, the dog is a prized commodity. Pito is at its best. His father grew up drinking pito and at the same time enjoying the dog meat. He embraced Islam and he became a very, very pious Muslim. What was his name? Sergeant Major Mahama. Sergeant Major Mahama was a very serious soldier in the Gold Coast Regiment, very loyal. And something interesting happened. Whilst he was serving the country, he was single. He was a young man ready to give all his energy to the betterment of the country. Ready to give all his energy for the betterment of the country. Sergeant Major Mahama, around the time of the Ya Asantewaa War, met his wife. How did he meet his wife? His wife was an Ewe woman who came all the way from Soviet in the Volta region. In fact, in that area, they speak a lot of Akan. We have a lot of Ewes who speak Akan, like the Ewes around Peki and some other such areas like that. Because a lot of Akan people moved into that area during the wars and settled there. And for that matter, a lot of the people in those areas speak Akan more than even their own Ewe language. Salifu Dagarti's wife-to-be came from Soviet. She was running away from the chief's palace. In fact, the chief of Soviet was her own father, who had forced her into a certain kind of marriage. After giving birth to 2 children, she decided to abscond. And she ran out of the area, not caring where she would land. Fortunately or unfortunately, she ran into some Gold Coast soldiers at the time of the Ya Asantewaa War. Speaking fluent Twi, the Gold Coast soldiers thought that she was an Ashanti and they were about to execute her. But when she told them she was actually an Ewe from Soviet, they understood her and decided to spare her life for espionage reasons. In other words, to use her as a spy. Now let us concentrate on the story of Susanna Akosua-Agyei. So she ran away, met with the Gold Coast soldiers. And what did they do? When they realized she spoke Twi, they decided to hold her and push her into their camp areas. She will go in there, listen to their plans and all that. Remember, it was the Ya Asantewaa War, the war of the females. So she pretended she was one of them, listening to all their plans, and then she will come back and report to the British. And the British will take action and be able to track a lot of the moves of the Ashantis. Ya Asantewaa could not understand. Somebody amongst us is gossiping, is telling this British what we are doing, or else the British have a certain juju that we cannot understand. Black magic. But before they realized, Ya Asantewaa herself was captured and sent all the way into exile. She went all the way to Mahe, the capital of Seychelles, to join hands with the king, Prempeh I. Interestingly, the Ashantis lost the war of the Golden Stool, and they had to stay without a king for as long as Prempeh I was in exile till he returned. We'll find time and talk about that story. Now, after the war was won, the British now asked Susanna Akosua-Agyei, you are running away from a marriage that you don't want. Now we'll give you a husband of your choice. Look amongst these local soldiers and see which one of them suits you as a man. And then you can have him marry you. She looked around. They brought about 11 soldiers. And then she picked Sergeant Major Mahama, the father of Salifu Dagarti, to be. So they came together, started making babies. Remember that the Ashantis are in Kumasi and the rest of the Ashanti region and some other portions of Ghana. So a lot of the war was fought in Kumasi. And right after the war, Sergeant Major Mahama and his new wife, Susanna Akosua-Agyei, remained in Kumasi, and that was where they gave birth to Salifu Dagarti. In fact, Salifu Dagarti was the last child they gave birth to. So that is the story of Salifu Dagarti's parentage. Right after the war, the man had a wife and they started a family. They lived happily until Salifu Dagarti's father, Sergeant Major Mahama, retired, and he decided to go back to Ullo in the Upper West region of Ghana today. Susanna Akosua-Agyei was not ready to go to the north. The British had taught her how to make alcohol. In fact, how to make alcohol, proper alcohol, the British way. And she made a lot of money out of it. She also had farms. She was one of the wealthiest women, if not the wealthiest woman in the Gold Coast at that time. She wouldn't leave her farms and follow Salifu Dagarti's father all the way to Ullo, a village that she had never even seen. So interestingly, what happened? She said she would not go. So Sergeant Major Mahama carried all the children to Ullo, leaving his wife behind. After some time, several years after, she followed up to Ullo, demanding to take the children back. By then, the children had grown up, and Sergeant Major Mahama asked the children, which one of you would like to go with the mother? Two of them decided to go with the mother, and one of them was Salifu Dagarti. He followed the mother all the way back to the south, and they also went all the way down to Soviet for him to be able to see the mother's lineage and all that. Today, we are telling the story of Salifu Dagarti like it has never been told. Deep, very deep, and very accurate. Listen, now after some time, Salifu Dagarti himself decided that he wanted to join the police service. So he went back to Ullo, stayed with his father for some time, took some tutorials, left, and came to Kintampo, where they were doing the recruitment for the police. And he was picked up. Oh my God. He was picked up. He was recruited. And he became a member of the Ghana police. In 1939, he had been promoted to the rank of corporal. Yes, 1939. 2 years later, in 1941, he became a sergeant. He seemed to be climbing the ladder of promotion very, very quickly. 5 years later, in 1946, he became sergeant major, just like his own father. He wanted to do more than his father. And then, in 1954, he became assistant superintendent of police. What? And they brought him all the way down to the Accra Police School, what today we call the police depot, for him to train some recruits and also whip the loyalty in them up, train them to become better police. He became what is known today as drill instructor. Took them through adult training, physical, and of course intellectual. Oh my God. And this was 1954, in the Gold Coast era, 3 years before the independence of this nation. And look at what happened now. After independence, he still continued to work very hard as a policeman. And everywhere Salifu Dagarti went, he distinguished himself. Why did he not take his father's name? He could have just been called Salifu Mahama. After all, his father's name was Mahama. But he realized that because all his father's children were born in Kumasi, they spoke more Twi than the Dagarti language. He did not want to be seen as an Akan because he wasn't one. He wanted to be seen as a Dagarti. He was a member of the Dagabas. He came from the ethnicity of the Dagabas. He was proud of the dog and the pito. So he put aside his father's name and called himself Salifu Dagarti, so that everyone meeting him would know that this is a Dagarti man, even though he spoke impeccable Twi. He spoke Hausa too, and a little bit of Dagari. Well, as a drill instructor, he excelled. And then in 1960, he became Chief Superintendent of Police. Wow! And when he reached that level, oh my God, things started working out. His name was spreading all over the place. Oh, that instructor who would make sure that you would work enough, who would train you and would not hold anything back from you. Strict, yet very, very professional. 2 years later in 1962. Remember, all this while, we had independence in the nation. All this while. 1960, Chief Superintendent of Police. 2 years later in 1962. Listen attentively. On the 12th of November, 1962, he was taken from the depot and from all the other places he was supposed to go work and taken all the way to the presidency, the Flagstaff House. Why? Nkrumah wanted a very loyal policeman. A policeman who would lay down his life for him. And everybody said, Salifu Dagarti. He studied the movements of Salifu Dagarti, asked a few other people, and everyone seemed to be trumpeting the praises of Salifu Dagarti. So Nkrumah went for him. Yes, Nkrumah went for him. On the 12th day of November in 1962, he became a presidential aide to Osajifo, Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. This is where the story ends. The real story is about to unfold. The plot is about to get thick. Brace yourselves. But remember, this is the African history class. And my name, Black Rasta. This is where we tell you the story adequately and ultimately correctly. Yes. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's called the African History Class, and African is spelled A-F-R-E-E-K-A-N. Class is K-L-A-S-S. And then remember to click on the notification button so that you would always be notified to watch the wonderful stories we bring up to you. So Salifu Dagarti, on the 12th day of November in 1962, was now at the presidency. And when Nkrumah saw him, he looked at him. He said, "Your face looks familiar." Salifu Dagarti said, "Well, sir, I don't know, but this is the first time I am talking to you." He said, "Are you sure?" Salifu Dagarti said, "Sir, please, I have to go and stand outside there and be at post." Every time Nkrumah asked him, "Your face looks familiar," he would find a way of telling him, "Oh, I've left my work, I have to go and continue." Nkrumah saw him to be a very professional person, and he never told Nkrumah where they met. You know where they met? Ashafort. Yes! The very first time Salifu Dagarti met Nkrumah was at Ashafort, where he had been arrested alongside some other people, agitating for the independence of this country. Arrested and locked up at Ashafort prisons. Salifu Dagarti was the one dispatched by the colonial administration to arrest Nkrumah, because many people believed that Nkrumah had juju from the Nzima land. And for that matter, Salifu Dagarti was the one seen as coming from the north, and he had a lot of hidden spiritual powers that could help arrest Nkrumah. And when he went, he arrested Nkrumah and took him all the way to the Ashafort prisons. And when he entered there, he told the people in charge of the prisons, "I brought this man here personally. I have not seen what he has done wrong, but my superiors say he should be arrested. I brought him here. I know the mind of the colonial administration. I do not want to return here and see any scratch on his body. And he kept going to see Nkrumah at the Usherford prisons, finding out how Nkrumah was doing. So years later, on the 12th of November, 1962, when he came in close contact with Kwame Nkrumah again, Nkrumah smelled him. Nkrumah looked at him, and something in his subconscious clicked that he probably knew this man. But Salifu Dagarti never made his identity known. But deep inside him, he knew where he knew Nkrumah from and what Nkrumah was trying to remember. So they started working. 12th November 1962, Nkrumah had him standing outside, and he was his personal aide, the presidential aide. That was the time there were so many hostilities. 1962. Nkrumah had a very good friend, a compatriot, and his name was Kwame Nkrumah. Now, Gbedema was a compatriot of Kwame Nkrumah. Gbedema was born in Warri in Nigeria. Gbedema was from Anyako in the Volta region. Listen attentively. These are very important issues. When Nkrumah was locked up, it was Gbedema who pushed and campaigned for Nkrumah to even win a seat in the assembly. He campaigned vigorously for Nkrumah to win a seat in the assembly. Campaigned on and on for Nkrumah to even move the country on, win other elections, and move on to become the elected president of this country at independence in 1957. Gbedema's mind was that he would be made the vice president, but Nkrumah didn't. He made him the minister of finance, minister of health, minister of this, minister of that. And in 1957, Kwame Gbedema went all the way to the United States of America to negotiate with the Americans. In fact, on some project which was very important. That project was the Volta Dam project, the Akosombo Dam. Gbedema was loved by his people, the Evers. They believed that he would become the vice president of the republic. But Nkrumah was that president who never had a vice president. He was observing Gbedema. Gbedema occupied so many different positions, and Nkrumah believed him. When Gbedema went to America in October 1957, he went into a restaurant to eat, and he was driven out, all because he was black. The president of America at that time was so embarrassed about this because it assumed national interest. The new republic in Africa has sent its minister of state to America, and he went to pay to eat in a restaurant. And he was sent out all because of racism. What would the American people go to Africa and talk to them about? Racism? He was embarrassed. And this was President Eisenhower. He called him to the White House, apologized to him. This was October in 1957, just a few months after the independence of this country, today called Ghana. Kwame Gbedema, aka Afreekan, became extremely popular in Ghanaian politics. It wasn't long before he and Kwame Nkrumah fell apart. He believed that Kwame Nkrumah was a spendthrift. He spent so much money without really thinking about where the money was going. And he warned Nkrumah that the country was about to get broke. But Nkrumah was looking at the projects more than he was looking at the money. And it didn't take long, and Gbedema started gossiping around and telling so many people how Nkrumah was blowing away money recklessly. And when Nkrumah heard it, he wasn't happy. This is my very good friend. If there's anything at all, he has spoken to me. Why would he not leave it there? He has kept going around talking to different people, and all that he says finally comes back to me. Nkrumah took his post from him and forced him to resign in 1961, just 4 years after the independence of this country. Gbedema felt let down. I struggled with this man from 1948. We struggled all the way to get independence 9 years after, in 1957. And 4 years after that, he has asked me to resign. He has sacked me. And he started talking to other people. Nkrumah is a traitor. Nkrumah is this. Nkrumah is a bad person. And when Nkrumah heard it, he was looking for a way to arrest him. At that time, he had instituted what was known as the Prevention Detention Act. You'll be arrested once you were seen to be a threat to the president or to the nation. Yes, Prevention Detention Act. It was very preventive. Preventive Detention Act. And you would also go to jail without trial. Nkrumah had to make it swift because the high court judges all seemed to be against Nkrumah. The country was getting broke and the Volta Dam has not been built yet. So Gbedema heard that Nkrumah was trying to arrest him and he went into exile in America. He never forgave Nkrumah. Kobla Agbeli Gbedema. Look at what he did. Whilst he was in America in exile, he was still pushing selflessly for the building of the Volta Dam, aka the Akosombo Dam. And he succeeded. Nkrumah built it. When it was done, then Gbedema, probably feeling that he didn't get enough credit because he pushed for it, he started to scheme around to get Nkrumah out. At that time, after Eisenhower, there was another great president of America, Kennedy. President F. Kennedy. F. Kennedy was a very, very powerful president. And he was close to Kwame Nkrumah. He was the one who warned Nkrumah. He told him, listen, your minister that you have sent into exile has joined hands with the CIA. They are looking for your head. I was not supposed to tell you this. Be very careful. Nkrumah said he had heard. But Nkrumah believed that Gbedema was nothing but a small fry. F-R-Y. Fry, small fish. He made a mistake. F. Kennedy himself was assassinated. And when he was assassinated, America came to a standstill. He was one of their best presidents. The CIA realized that he had been talking, especially to this African leader who was seen to be an enemy of America. So they took him out. Now the next person to take out was Kwame Nkrumah. They spent a lot of money. And then the vice president to Kennedy, Lyndon B. Johnson, became president. And when he became president, he told the line of the CIA, anti-Nkrumah. They sponsored the coup d'etat in Ghana in 1966. Look at what they started by doing. Kobla Agbeli Gbedema from Anyako got in contact with J.W.K. Harley, who was the IGP, Commissioner of Police, at that time, also from Anyako, and some other people from Anyako, especially talked to them, and they agreed to be on the payroll of the CIA and take out Nkrumah. They included people like Deku, Kwashi. It was in Kwashi's residence at the 37 military hospital they had their meetings. Deku in an interview later said, in fact, he was forced to be part of the coup. He didn't want to be part of it. Nkrumah was supposed to be overthrown earlier when he had gone for a certain conference in England. But they tried and it was foiled. And he thanked God that it didn't work. But the second one did not fail. Deku, Kwashi, JWK Harley came together. Afrifa came in. Oh, Kotoka from Alakle, also an Ewe. So it was an Ewe machination. And the man at the helm of it all, the mastermind, was Komla Agbeli Bedema, just as Kennedy had warned. The president of America, B. Lyndon, sent a message to Kwame Nkrumah, oh, come to China, and then to Vietnam, Hanoi, where there's a world war. They are fighting. It's more than a world war. But you'll be able to help broker a deal. Nkrumah did not want to go. But the ladies around Nkrumah, June Mill, and also Erica Powell, convinced him after some time, and he agreed that he had to go in the name of peace. Little did he know that they were only trying to take him out of Ghana so that the coup makers could be in place. And it worked. When Nkrumah left, the handshakes, the smiles were all over, but they were all fake. He was overthrown. Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown in February 1966. That was when Nkrumah was overthrown. Can we rewind? Can we rewind? Can we rewind? Rewind. Okay, watch this. Before the coup, I told you they tried one in England, London, and it didn't work. Now the second one they tried before the final coup is the one I'm interested in. They believed Nkrumah had juju. They tried several times, they couldn't remove him. So they believed he had juju. Especially that Salifu Dagarti was also with him. And they believed Salifu Dagarti, our hero for today, also had juju. Now let us put the story in perspective. Watch this. On the 12th day of November in 1962, Salifu Dagarti was officially sent to the presidency, the Flagstaff House, to be the special presidential aide to Kwame Nkrumah. Nkrumah tried to recognize him, but he knew and decided to stay away. He didn't want Nkrumah to recognize him. He was that professional. He was a man who never took bribe. People brought him turkey during Christmas, goats during Salah, and he refused to take everything. If you came to the presidency or any other place looking for a job and you came with an envelope, he would ask you, what is this envelope for? A bribe? You are unemployed. Where did you get this money from to bribe? You will never get the job. So everybody knew Salifu Dagarti as a straight policeman. Salifu Dagarti, listen to this interesting thing. 12 November 1962, he started working with Nkrumah. 2 years later, in 1964, something interesting happened. Remember Komla Agbeli Bedema, who President Kennedy had warned Nkrumah about. He was able to get all these names that I mentioned, JWK Harley, Deku, and Kwashi, to come together to remove Nkrumah. Komla Agbeli Bedema, far away in America, was able to speak with JWK Harley, also from Anyako, from the same hometown. And he was the IGP at that time, Inspector General of Police, the first one. Watch what happened. Watch this. They decided to put a strange soldier in front of Nkrumah's Flagstaff House office, and he was called Seth Ametewe. He was a good shoot. He shot and never missed. They put him there. They fed him with bullets, but he took only 5 bullets. He believed himself. Why 5 bullets? 1 for Nkrumah, 1 for Nkrumah's driver, 1 for the bodyguard, and one for the special presidential aid, and the last one for emergency. 5 bullets. That day, the time was 1:15 p.m. Nkrumah was leaving the Flagstaff house and he was going to the Christian Moore Castle for lunch, when all of a sudden the gun started to blaze. Rat-tat-tat-tat-tat, rat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat-tat. What? 2 of the bullets hit Nkrumah in the chest, and his bodyguard, presented to him by the CPP's party, took to his heels. His driver took to his heels. Hey! People in the yard were all running for cover. Salifu Dagarti realized that it would be too late for him to shoot. Remember, he was a presidential aide and not a bodyguard. He jumped in front of Nkrumah, pushed him away, and opened himself to the bullets. In fact, said Ametewe, the guard planted there by the perpetrators of the coup or the assassination, fired shots and hit Salifu Dagarti. 1:15, the 2nd day of January 1964, and he went down. When he realized that Nkrumah hadn't died, said Ametewe started chasing him and shouting, Jimakla, Jimakla, whilst Nkrumah was running and shouting, help, help, help. He was shouting, Jimakla, Jimakla. He was left with 1 bullet. That 1 bullet came out of the gun. He didn't fire. That was when they believed that Nkrumah had juju. So he ran with an empty gun, ran to Nkrumah, wanted to hit his head with a gun. For some strange reason, the gun came out of Seth Ametewe's hand, and Nkrumah wrestled him down, hit him, kicked his groin, and he passed out. Security now came in, took Seth Ametewe out. When Nkrumah returned to Salifu Dagarti, he was cold. They rushed him to the 37 military hospital, but he was pronounced dead on arrival. 2nd January 1964. He was buried the following day because he was Muslim. On the 3rd of January, Friday, 1964, he left behind 2 wives and a baby mother and 12 children. His wife was pregnant with his last child, called Ibrahim. He was named after their father, Baba. And what happened? The mother went into labor, early labor, when she saw that they were holding the shoes of Salifu Dagarti and his uniform. She knew that he had died. She went into labor. In fact, on the 38th day of the death of Salifu Dagarti, when they were preparing for the Arba'in, the 40th day, she went through cesarean and she gave birth to the child. Today, we remember the story of Salifu Dagarti, that loyal son of the land, who never took any bribe, a great son of the land, who did everything possible to make sure that this nation rose. He knew that if he had died, there was still a man called Nkrumah who would champion the African cause, the Ghanaian cause. So he laid down his life for Kwame Nkrumah. A story of loyalty, a story of professionalism. Today we remember you, our Papa. Papa, Uninyaminko. Papa, Uninyaminko. Oh, Papa, Miss Uninyaminko. Papa uni yaminko wate. Papa misuri yaminko. Oh papa, dami fadwe wate. Dami fadwe. Oh papa. Oh na papa sorry. Papa misi sorry. Oh papa wawampa. Papa wawampa. Oh papa, uni yaminko. Papa minubeko. Papa misi minubeko wate. Oh papa. And the papa uni. And I want to be on cra. One cra. I took a trip to the cemetery where he was buried on the 3rd day of January 1964, a day after he was shot dead. And this is his grave. Look at his number, staff number. Look at his name. And by his grave, look at these 2 beautiful flowers. Covering naturally grew there. And look at how the grave is shining. I also took a look at some of the graves of the villains. Like Kotoka, look, his grave is almost broken. Can you see? I also saw the graves of some of those other coup makers. On a later day, we will look at how Salifu Dagarti gathered his family. We had an interview with his wife who is still alive and some members of the family. We will bring you that little documentary. Watch out for that. It will blow your mind. In the interim, this is the Afreekan history class. And my name, Black Rasta. And in the burden of knowledge, I ask you, now that you know, what would you do? How would the life story of Salifu Dagarti impact your own life in contemporary times? Now that you know, what would you do? Be an any olay mini obafe yenzuda kagane mezaka yini. Ye apa bango bukaye no fifi ayenyandu kai nawo bana ehu ebe den bana ehu ebe ya bade lele anjima singa be kunne lele anjima singa be kunne wa. It's been the Afreekan history class. And my name, Black Rasta.
Ila chindela lenywa. Ila muwa matinda batomu. Ndabiye pete kaba welane. Jesu bien ngene kaba welano. Ila chindela lenywa wa. Ila chindela lenywa. Ila muwa matinda batomu. Ndabiye pete kaba welane. Jesu bien ngene kaba welano.